going to youth conferences, is how much airtime white males take up. And this is not all of them. There's plenty of sensitive people who of any gender who leave space, but just it's almost an assumption that I have more to say. If you don't interrupt me, then you don't have anything worth saying, so I'll just take over here. And I remember, like, we were in environmental organizations, places where we were talking about social justice as well, and this was happening constantly. I had these incredibly, some of the most educated youth women from all over the country who had strong, like, backgrounds of activism and stuff, and they would shrink. So it was partly their own action and partly the men speaking a lot and making assumptions. There were assumptions on both sides. And it just, there was one conference in particular that I was at that everything just kind of crumbled, and I actually brought a lot of that to the surface because the women were off by themselves complaining and crying and being upset about not being heard, and the men were off going, what's their problem? And we've actually brought it together and began to talk about what was happening, and there was shame that came up, and it was really hard and it was really scary, but that changed the whole culture so that we could actually cooperate and get the strengths from all the different people. And I think there's such a lack of awareness I notice in classes that I'm in or whatever of airtime and leaving space for other people, asking other people if they want to contribute, who takes the leadership and what they say and how they say it, and whether there's any space for anyone to say anything. And I just think that in itself, just the way that you speak and how you consider others around you, it's about power and control. And
yeah, giving people who don't feel like they have any power. There's a lot of people that don't like speaking out. They need some time and some gentle persuasion to say what they need to say. Because there's always somebody, well, hurry up and get it over with, or, you know, why didn't you speak up then? You know, there's always that. So it's nice when you can be given the room to speak if you feel that you can't.
Yep. That's something that I really see in what we did today, is that there's a potential to really take the process of what we did and dig into the dynamics. You know, like I noticed at one point, you know, like I was sitting off to the side and you were trying to encourage me to, you know, I thought anyway, trying to, like, you know, get in there and do stuff. But those are opportunities that we can take with a group to really look at the dynamics and say, are we all aware of where everybody is? Is there somebody that needs encouragement to speak up? How can we do that? You know, are we listening to all the ideas that are being thrown out onto the table? And is somebody, are we not hearing somebody? What can we do to include that person? Like, there's tons of potential in the process of this, you know, regardless of what the video that everybody's working on is.
Right.
Just the way that we're working together, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of the byproduct of the talk and the learning, you know, learning to use equipment and playing with things. Because there's, you know, I'm very familiar with a lot of this stuff, but there's a lot of, and, you know, it might be stereotyping, but there's a lot of women that don't interact with mechanical things. So there's another way that, you know, we're bringing someone out and learning new tools and you know, it's in the community and togetherness and sharing ideas and working together. It's great.
I love that it's not like being edited on the computers, because I'm so tired. Like, it exhausts me that my job is click, 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 click. That's what I do. Everything I do. Click, click. I want to change something. You know, in an email newsletter, it's click, cut, paste, click, resize, click, 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 send. You know, like, that's what my kids do. They're like, oh, do you have some more clicking to do, Mom? You know, like, that's my job. And it's really nice to be engaged in the process.
And I really like the organicness of the conversation that was happening, like, behind the scene, and that had a lot of value too. Like, I think about this being a facilitator in a classroom where I can get distracted in the traditional teaching role where you listen while someone is speaking. And there is a challenge to that those that don't want the large scene as they speak will never take the turn to be heard. Even if I keep everybody quiet waiting for their turn, and yet then if there's a sidebar conversation with that very person, I might say, whoa, somebody else is speaking right now, you'll have your turn. They may never want to be at the front. And so respecting that the conversations that we're having behind the camera were actually helping what was going on in the front, but we had to know what they were. And that it was okay that it was behind the scene, and that it wasn't ever going to be on camera, or maybe it will be. You know, but that counted was a really helpful shift for me, because, and hearing you speak to that, and just being more conscientious, even when I believe that I am, like just another layer and another layer, and the beauty of what this medium offers to allow so much more participation in so much more of a dynamic way is really exciting.
Yeah, we all took our turns and shared, and it wasn't about, you know, one star, one director. It was, you know, it was fun to take all the positions. And
I think there was an awareness when that did start to happen of, well, have you participated? What do you want to do? What do you think? Because I'm noticing, well, I personally would notice, okay, a couple people are coming forward and other people might get quiet. And I think traditionally we are, and some personalities more than others may be conditioned to go, well, I don't care that much, so I'll let them have their fun. But really to keep including everyone, and even if they don't want to be in a more active role, to just know that there's a space there for them. And know that I'm flexible, for me to even just that power dynamic thing, again, to be aware, oh, like I'm in front and I've had a lot of input and I'm being, you know, a strong voice here, and that kind of gives me more power, and it's starting to establish routines and rhythms and roles, and how can I keep breaking that up so that there's still opportunity for other people to have their input and share, I guess.
Yeah, I like really enjoyed using this medium as well, because I find that the film offers a lot more, it's not as imposing or intimidating as, like, for example, like speaking or directly conversing, like having a conversation in a class. I feel like as if this were like implemented in schools, some kids who would have issues with like anxiety wouldn't have as much anxiety, because you're not speaking directly, and it's sort of a conduit to go through to express yourself and make your feelings be known and offer perspective. And that's what I really like about the whole medium of film. You have the front of the camera and the back of the camera, right? And that offers a lot of perspective. You're seeing both ends, and you can really, it offers a lot when you see yourself filmed, how you act, and offers a lot of perspective on yourself.
you can always erase it.
And the separation between, like, I'm going to cut, we're going to talk for a while, we're going to go again, is, you know, we lose that sense of who's the star, because you break for a while, right? So who's in front of the camera is not the star, because it's collaborative through the whole time. Which is, you know, it's only that last few moments when you play it all together that you get, you know, it's only the final product that has a sense of what, you know, what was the fun. Like you said, you know, it's a means, that part is the end, but the rest of it is what really counted. The relationship of all of that.
What you were saying about learning styles earlier too, like this is a way to incorporate everyone's learning styles. Like I noticed you're really good with physical, like here's, that cracks me up every time, that scene that when you did it and when I saw it with the sprinkles and the bouncy ball and then you going under the thing, like I wouldn't have thought of those things or maybe been comfortable with it, but it brought a whole other layer that was really rich rather than just us talking, which is what most of the rest of us were doing. And then just Angela and Julianne are so articulate, and you were really creative with the symbolism of the clock and stuff. Like I just saw different strengths and perspectives everyone had, being able to come together in kind of like a patchwork quilt that made something larger, and there was a place for everyone to use their strengths rather than just one perspective or one, you know, it's all about talking or it's all about language or it's just all about the visual. There was a lot of different things that could be engaged, and even more than what we did. So.
Like Matt being comfortable to, like, you're the only one that got down on the ground to do, right? And I thought, like, whoa, that's physical. Like this is, you know, I always talk when I'm like, are we shoulders up learners or shoulders down learners? And like being comfortable to like physically get down on the ground and have to move your body and shift that. You got up on a chair, you got down, like both, those were the times that really changed the perspective. And I think if that's what the whole message is like, let's change the perspective. Let's change what's being talked about. Let's change who's talking about. Let's change who's involved. Right?
You can see the tagline, 5 directors, 5 stars.
5 minutes.
Yeah. 5-minute movie.
It's our new slogan.
I've been watching Facts of Life on Netflix recently, and I watch it with a bit of like, you know, it's the early 80s, right? Like 1979 it started, and I'm watching it thinking of the stereotypical girls and the message that we all some of us grew up with watching as like, you know, here are our characters that we're watching, and I'm, get to the end, it's like directed by 2 men, produced by 2 men,
Oh, yeah,
written
yeah.
by 3 men. Like it's all by men, you know. Like it's really a narrow perspective that we've been sold in popular culture.
Interesting. I was thinking about you're talking about the 70s and the 80s. And yes, the popular culture is like totally, well, as you described. I was thinking of an organization that I was a part of back then, and when we had business meetings, they always had pre-business meetings. And there was one for women, one for men, and one for mixed gender. And what would happen is the men would get together and they would all talk and get it off their chest. Right? And the women would come together and they'd build confidence in being familiar with the issues and speaking out loud and talking in a safe place. And the ones that didn't feel comfortable, being in a single gender group could get together and do their thing. And what happened was when we got together, it didn't completely equalize the sharing, but it moved it hugely towards that. And everybody understood the issues because they had the time to work on it. This is the 1970s and 80s. So this is the difference between counterculture and mainstream media. And so what we're doing in 2015 is we're saying, okay, we get that the mass media is not serving us. What is our counterculture? What are we doing instead? What do we want to take charge of our own communities, our own media, and it's possible now. I mean, back in the 80s, there was no YouTube, there was no digital media, you couldn't do it. It would cost a fortune. Now, you can pick out your smartphone and off you go,
And
Video time,
Absolutely, and another thing, like working with youth, saying, technology sometimes, especially in the classroom environment, can be this real challenge that you're always fighting against. And it's like, it's time to get over fighting against it and embrace it.
Because the kids of today are growing up in the technology.
Yes, and there's so much
it's,
opportunity. Why are we shutting ourselves off to it instead of embracing it? And I know that I have got over half of my class that if I just said, you know what, keep them out and let's do something with them. They'd be like, really? They'd be like, yes, do that.
But again, it's a change in the way that we're doing it, right? Because it's the clicking that is kind of useless, as far as healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
This isn't it, but having the process of getting up and walking around and trying things out, then it's like taking a little old school style, right? Then we get to be hands-on and actually experiencing something and not just clicking through some program.
Yeah, old school with new technology.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the instructors at the Mount where I teach really welcomes smartphones into the class, and what will happen is there'll be an issue that comes up, says, okay, 60 seconds, get on Google, what do you think? And everybody's out there, using it for the class,
And I find that teachers who encourage the use of smartphones, and implement it into the class, actually find less problems with smartphones as well. There's not as big of issues.
If you're busy doing the assignment on your smartphone, you can't be texting.
Right. In my day, you weren't allowed to bring a calculator to school.
It would rot your brain.
Well, it was cheating.
Right.
How can you learn anything if you're using a calculator?
Right. Oh, I think that the beauty was the math. She's saying, well, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket anytime you need it. Actually?
Yeah.
Actually?
Yeah. That was a good one.